Hello and welcome to the Maths Guide, and today we're going to be looking at constructions, and the tools we're going to be needing for this are a protractor and a ruler. So you might get a question that looks like this. It looks long-winded, but we'll go through it bit by bit and you'll see how it works. So the question asks you to construct an angle of 40 degrees between two straight lines, and that's the main point of this exercise, is to construct the angle and measure distances. Okay, so from the point of intersection of the lines where the two lines meet, measure a distance of 6 centimeters to a point on one line and label it A. From the point of intersection of the lines, measure a distance of 10 centimeters and label it B. And then measure the length of the line segment AB, which is the distance from the point A to the point B, and you'll be asked what the length is. Let's go through this bit by bit. The first part, construct an angle of 40 degrees between two straight lines. That tool in the top right is called a protractor, and you'll be using that to measure a rotation of 40 degrees and constructing another line. So that's the first part of it there. That's a little image to show you what you're doing, and we'll go through that in more detail in just a moment. The second part, from the point of intersection of the lines, that point of rotation that you're measuring your angle around, measure a distance of 6 centimeters to a point on one line and label it A. So you just get your ruler, you measure along that line from the point of intersection, so the zero, the ruler is at the point of intersection, you measure a distance of 6 centimeters and you label it A. That's the letter A I have there. And then you also measure a distance of 10 centimeters along the other line and label it B. So there you've got the point A and you now have the point B, and you're asked to measure the length of the line segment AB. So that just means measure the distance from that point A to point B. And that's all you have to do, but let's have a look at that in a little more detail in the next video. Hello and welcome to the Maths Guide, and today we're going to be looking at measuring an angle using a protractor, which is a tool that looks like that. We're also going to be using a ruler to measure a distance. So what we're going to use the protractor for is we're going to use the protractor for measuring an angles, and an angle is a measure of rotation. So let's say, for example, you are standing here at this point, X marks the spot there, and you are facing this direction. Let's just put it in red. If you are facing that way, so let's say you were standing there facing that way, to measure an angle, you would change the direction you're looking to some other direction like there, and you'd be measuring how much you've rotated about this point here. So you're rotating about this point and you're measuring how much you've rotated. So originally you're facing directly right along this line, and you change the way you're facing by rotating around this point here to face a different direction. And we're going to look at how you measure that using a protractor. So this tool here is a protractor, and you use it to measure an angle of rotation. Now what people often do when they're using this is they put the flat part of the protractor along the line that they're looking at, and you don't want to do that. You want to put the protractor flat so that that zero here is on this line here, and that this, let's have a look, and this zero here is also on that line. The point which you're going to be measuring your rotation around is found here. So let's have a look at what happens when we turn this. We're going to be looking at a rotation around that particular point. So let's tidy this up again a little bit, and we're going to be measuring our rotation around this particular point here. So to measure around that particular point, you put those crosshairs right there. Let's tidy this up a little bit. Let's say that's the point you want to measure around. You put those crosshairs right there. You point your zero along the line that you're measuring along, and in this example we're going to be measuring 40 degrees. So you'll notice the zero starts here because you're facing this direction, you haven't rotated at all. If you turn to face a little bit higher, you'll be at 10 degrees. If you turn to face higher, you'll be at 20, a little higher at 30, and a little at higher, you'll be at 40 degrees. So when you're facing this direction, you'll have rotated 40 degrees. Again, let's just tidy that up a little bit and mark this point here where we started our rotation, and mark this point here when we're facing 40 degrees, which is this 40 here. So remember to count from 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. We're measuring from this red point here where the crosshairs are up to this point is on the 40 line. Let's move this out of the way, and what we do then is we use a straight edge or a ruler and we measure a line from that point through that junction there and continue it on like that. So there we go, we've got a line measured along there. What we want to do now is we're asked to measure 10 centimeters along that line. So you put your ruler along the line and we're going to measure 10 just to there. So let's see exactly where that point is. It's going to be there. Okay, we're then asked to also measure 6 centimeters along the other line. So we'll put our ruler there and measure along this line for a distance of 6 centimeters. Try and do it as neatly and accurately as possible. And there's the 6 centimeters. I'm going to measure just there on the bottom of that. Okay, what you do then is you get the straight edge and you'll measure with a ruler from here down to here. And then in the question, what you're asked to do is you're asked to measure that distance with the ruler from there let's just get this lined up nicely, from there to there. And as we can see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5, 6.6, 6.7 centimeters. So the distance there is 6.7 centimeters. But what I'm really asking you to do is to be able to put the protractor here at this point. Make sure that when you're putting the protractor down, you're putting the protractor right at that starting point. Your 0 is here along this line and you're measuring a rotation around there to this line here, which brings us up to the 40 here. So when you're facing this direction, you'll be measuring an angle of 40 degrees. And then in order to ask a question, you'll be asked to measure the distance from there to there, which we just saw was 6.7 centimeters, 6.7 centimeters. So you measure that out, you put your answer into the answer box, you hit enter and you should get your score. Okay, so just remember a few things. Remember that you don't put the protractor, that you don't put the flat part of the protractor along the line. You put the zeros of the protractor along the line, and then when you're measuring an angle, you can measure a rotation in whatever direction you're measuring, but it means that we're facing this way, now facing this way, and you've rotated your head around that distance to measure an angle of 40 degrees. So give that a go. Obviously there's going to be a lot of questions. It's going to take a little time to practice getting used to this, but once you get the habit of it, you'll find you can measure out the questions really fast. You'll be measuring distance. Make sure that you measure it accurately with the ruler starting at the 0. Make sure you start at 0. Make sure you mark your questions accurately and you will get your marks. So have a go with that and the very best of luck.